The theme that we're currently on here at Faith right now is entitled, What Now? What do you do when you experience a level of popularity? What now? What now if you happen to be misunderstood? And this morning the topic is on rejection. What happens if you have or are experiencing rejection in your life? And the reality is it's not an easy thing to preach on because rejection stinks no matter how it happens. And I would hazard a guess to say that we have all been on the receiving end of rejection at some point and in some level of our lives. And rejection can start early. For my mom, it started the moment she was born. My grandfather was not a very nice man. He was raised in an environment where he wasn't accepted. So while the rest of the family slept in the house, my grandfather was forced to sleep in a barn. And the only opportunity for him to gain any parcel of land over in Europe was if he had a son. And he didn't have a son, he had a daughter, my mom. My grandfather was so furious at the fact that he had a girl that he literally tried to kill her. He took her as an infant, hid her in a cornfield in the middle of winter, came back, and she was gone. My grandmother and my great-grandmother searched everywhere for my mom, and obviously they found her, or else I would not be preaching to you this morning. But from that moment on, she was taken and she was raised by her grandparents. Now the thing is, when it comes to rejection, the pain of that from her father still haunts her to this day. She's in her late 70s. My grandfather passed away many, many years ago. And even though she was raised in a godly, loving environment with her grandparents, she still feels that pain of being rejected by her dad. And you can reason it out that it had nothing to do with her, it had to do with him, and all of these things, but it doesn't change the fact that rejection is painful. Now, I'm sorry to start on such a heavy note. I will try to lighten it up. And I will say lighten it up as much as I can because rejection obviously is not an easy thing to talk about. And the point was that rejection can start early. For me, rejection started my first day of kindergarten. I know that I've made a joke about my name before, but when you're starting kindergarten, you have a last name that sounds like a very specific fish disease. Kids will immediately reject you. My name is tunikitis. And even the teachers are like, tunikitis? We know that the kids here are immunized against certain things. Is tunikitis contagious? Do we need an immunization for tunikitis? And I'm like, well, thank you for making this such a welcoming environment. You know that I'm 5, right? But it stunk being rejected over something that I had no control over. Rejection happens in schoolyard picks. You know, when you have the athletic kids that are picking their teams, and they pick everyone else, and every time your name is not called, you feel that little sting of rejection. They didn't choose me. Rejection happens with your first crush. You know, back in the day, before phones and technology, you would write a little note to somebody that you thought was cute. Will you go with me, yes or no? Do you like me, yes or no? And then they would maybe take that pen and red and circle the no and return it to you. Or worse than that is that they would show that note to their friends who would all laugh and say, I can't believe Fish Boy likes you. Rejection. Rejection happens when you're trying out for a sports team. You give it your best shot. You lay everything out as best as you can. The day comes when the coach posts the lists. You're hoping to see your name on there, and for whatever reason, the coach did not pick you, and you feel rejected. Rejection happens when you're on the outside of a clique. Every other person gets invited to the party, but not you. Rejection happens when you apply to a college or a university, and you're trying your best, and you just put that in there, and all of a sudden you hear back from the college or university, thank you so much for submitting your application. Unfortunately, and you're like, rejected. Here, I don't know if you've actually read these screens, but here somebody responded to a rejection letter from Duke University. They're rejecting the rejecting letter. It's like, yeah, I appreciate the fact that you want to reject me, but I'm rejecting your rejection. Rejection happens when you apply for a job, and there's so many different levels on this. You try to present yourself as best as you can on a resume, you submit the resume, you don't get a call. So you know somebody looked at that and said, nope. Or I don't even know if this is worse or better when you actually get the call and you're invited to the interview and you dress up and you try to present yourself and you do what you think is a great job at the interview, and then they say, well, we're going to let you know by the end of next week, and they don't call. Rejection. Rejection happens within a marriage. One spouse decides they're done. They reject the vows that they took, and that pain of rejection not only affects the spouse, but it also affects the children. Rejection can happen in a miscarriage when the body literally rejects the fetus. Nope, we are not going to see this one through. And the point of all this is that there are so many ways that we can experience rejection, and each and every time there's an element of pain to it. One last potentially hypothetical scenario of rejection. Let's just say, hypothetically, you're an older pastor. Not an old pastor, just older. But you still have a heart for young people. So you decide to run a drop-in basketball program at one of the local schools for high school students and university kids and college kids, and they come out. And you're having fun because although you're slightly older and maybe less skilled as those who come out, you still enjoy playing the sport with them. There comes a point in time when you're playing, a ball breaks free. You grab that ball and you're making your way towards the basket. Everybody else is on this side of the court. And as you're heading towards the basket and you're going up to make one spectacular layup, you feel happy because although you're slightly older than the rest and maybe less skilled than the rest, you feel like in this moment you are contributing to the overall success of your team. The ball is about to leave your hand when all of a sudden, out of the blue, some kid, and just for the sake of the story, we'll just call this kid Ben Charles, comes out of nowhere and just slaps the ball out of your hands. And now all the happiness that you felt is replaced with sadness and confusion. It's like, how on earth? You were all the way down there. How did you get up here so fast? And the sadness and the confusion is compounded by the fact that every single kid in the entire gym, both on your team and the opposing team, go, ooh, rejected. Rejection, no matter what form it takes, makes you feel bad. It results in pain. It causes you to lose faith in yourself. You might think, what's wrong with me? Why am I not accepted? And here's the thing about rejection. If we're not careful,